tonight's big stories. The DICT fends off multiple cyber attacks on the websites of the lower house, OWA, Philippine Coast Guard, and even President Marcos's own page. We'll speak to DICT Assistant Secretary Paraiso about why they think these are coming from within China.
The Senate begins deliberating charter change, but framers of the 1987 Constitution call it unnecessary, a lethal experiment, and a dance to hell.
And the Department of Justice, along with some cabinet officials of former President Rodrigo Duterte, vehemently opposed calls for the secession of Mindanao from the rest of the Philippines.
Welcome to the show. I'm Regina.
I'm Gretchen.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are finally complete after weeks of missing each other.
Good to be back.
Oh, very good to be back. Unfortunately, we don't have very positive news to start the newscast off with. DICT says it cannot categorically say at this point that last week's cyber attacks were by the Chinese government. DICT Undersecretary Jeffrey E&D said this in an interview just this afternoon on 1PH's Sa Totoo Lang.
Categorically, I will state that we cannot at this moment attribute this to the Chinese government. But what we can say is that the actors, based on hindi lang IP address, but based on multiple investigations, may have been operating within Chinese networks.
This began on Saturday when the agency reported that it had blocked cyber attacks from within China on the website of the Philippine Coast Guard. The hackers also tried to break into the websites of the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, and even that of President Marcos's official website. But again, DICT insists they were able to block these attacks and that no sensitive data were accessed.
Whatever information they got, nagkaroon na ho tayo ng remediation sa layman's terms. So, nagkaroon na ho tayo ng mga hakbang para ho, kung ano man ho yung nakuha nila, hindi na nila ho magagamit.
Well, this isn't the first time that we're hearing of hacks on our government websites.
But what I like about it is that they were able to, be proactive on the hacks and fend off the attackers. But I don't know, like for the PCG's part, the spokesman, Armand Balillo, had said that they will ensure that the website is secure, that there is enough firewalls to prevent it from being infiltrated by hackers. Sinabi rin niya na baka naman ordinaryong hackers lang daw ang mga may pakana nito.
We were also, Gretchen was also pointing out, remember there were such hacks on the lower house as well last year. And again,
the
this
one with
time
the
around, yung troll face, remember that. And again, this time around, particularly the Congressional Policy and Budget Research Department, itong sabi dyan ni House Secretary General Velasco.
According to our IT group, there have been I don't know if I will believe them, but millions of attempts to deface, to hack our data.
But we also did dissect this and who is responsible in case a cyber attack happens. Sabi nga, si DICT is there to help.
Yes.
But they're not like the
It's not their responsibility.
They're not there.
Nandyan sila to assist. So the House has asked for DICT's help on this, and Speaker Romualdez also called for a briefing on the cyber attacks. Congress also plans to hire third-party IT experts to secure their network.
Finally. Yan talaga yung kailangan, di ba? That's what the DICT is saying. Secure your own networks. Kasi it's not the responsibility of the DICT to secure
They are
each
there
and
to
every...
advise.
Yes. So, what exactly led the DICT to believe that these acts were actually, or these attacks were actually carried out from within China? Let's bring in Julie Baisa for the answer. Julie, what do you have?
Shawn, the DICT says they cannot say with certainty yet who is behind the cyber attacks, but the agency was able to trace the hackers' internet protocol or IP address. In the same location of China United Network Communications Group, or Unicom, which is a Chinese state-owned telco. The DICT said, though, that this does not automatically mean that the Chinese government carried out the attack. Cybersecurity analyst Art Samaniego shares the same view.
So meron silang tinatawag na mga virtual private network na pwede silang magtago at sabihin nila na nakakonect sila doon sa isang telco sa China. Pero ang katotohanan nun, sa ibang bansa sila, sa ibang lugar nang galing, maaaring sa Pilipinas pa nga.
The DICT adds that at least 3 groups of hackers have tried to attack the Philippines. These are the Lonely Island, an Iranian hacking group, as well as Minder and Panda that are supposedly linked to a Chinese telco and the Chinese government. All three are considered as Advanced Persistent Threats or APT groups. The cybersecurity enthusiast says such attacks done by APTs are not new. He says these hackers' operations could take 3 up to over 7 months, and their usual targets are not only website but even email addresses. Shawn, in the middle of these cyber attacks, the DICT says they have already laid out a national cybersecurity plan that is now up for the President's approval. Shawn?
All right, thanks so much for that update, Julie Baiza.
Let's dig deeper into these hacking attempts. With us tonight, we have Department of Information and Communications Technology Assistant Secretary Aboy Paraiso. Good evening, Asec.
Good evening, Ma'am Gretchen, Ma'am Regina, Ma'am Shawn. It's good to be back here. I say good evening as well to your viewers and listeners.
Kahit na medyo bad news no, Asec?
That's the only time we get to meet each other. So
Well, Asec, tell us if this is really bad news or good news, because this time around we were able to block the cyber attacks. Walk us through what exactly happened. How different is this attack compared to the past hacks? And how were you able to fight off the hackers and trace the source?
Well, this is the product of really the hard work of the men and women of DICT. Despite the lack of manpower, despite the lack of budget, the skill level and dedication of these people are unparalleled to, alam nyo, ngayon ko lang magkakaroon ng pagkakataon na talaga papurihan sila. But to walk you through what happened is because of our intelligence gathering, and we were able to predict and we were able to see the actions of these threat actors, and then afterwards they didn't push through that much, and we were able to thwart these attempts to hack into our government website.
What were the indicators? How were you able to predict the movements of the hackers?
Well, it is also the product of your interrelationship natin, our communication and cooperation with various other nations similarly situated and similarly vulnerable to these attacks. Sila yung mga targets natin. So with our allies, we were able to see and monitor these threat actors, particularly monitor these groups, yung Meander, tsaka yung Panda ho. So we were able to see what actions they were taking, and then we checked our own systems, and when we verified, we were able to see their actions and then remediate kung ano man yung magagawa na nila.
Alright, Asik Aboy, question lang, no? Yung sinasabing ang galing daw sa mainland China na trace yung IP address because of the presence and, ubiquitous use of VPNs or virtual private networks, can we really ascertain na galing to sa China or nagmumukha lang na galing sa China? Can we definitively say kung saan nang galing, no, tong hackers or tong attackers?
With a certain degree of certainty, we can say that the IP addresses came from mainland China, from the territorial jurisdiction of the Chinese government. Pero hindi lang po yan yung indikasyon natin bakit natin sasabi na these came in from within China. We also see that the patterns of these threat actors, the groups that they belong to, are synonymous and consistent with the previous attacks coming from the same groups and coming from the same threat actors.
When you say pattern, what do you mean? What have you observed about their pattern? Are they after something specific? Nakita ko sa ibang reports na may hinahanap silang mga access codes or looking for people that are accessing certain databases, certain information.
Well, just like with any other normal person, they have their certain traces and they leave their certain footprints. They have their own modus operandi that are consistent na hindi naman nagbabago yan. So from this, we can ascertain that these belong to the same groups that were linked to attacks before and were attributed to Chinese citizens.
Okay.
And then did it affect just the websites that we were reporting? PCG, OWA, President Marcos's own website, and also the DICT. Was it limited to those 4, or are there more?
Let me let me contextualize everything that's happening. On a daily basis, there are certain attacks that parati tayong ina-atake ng mga threat actors na to, and they are the net
that they spread is so widespread that they attack several networks. It's not only limited to government websites. They also do hacking on private individuals and private entities as well. So ganun ho natin nakikita yung sitwasyon ngayon, ma'am.
Pero ano kaya yung pakay nung hackers? Is it to steal data? Is it to show us our vulnerabilities? Is it to threaten us?
Maybe read some emails na classified or may ganun ba?
Ganito ho yan eh. We will never know because of what we did, because we thwarted them na agapan ho natin sila. We would never know the real motive. What we know so far is they were trying to get access. They were trying to get access from certain yung mga administrators access. So whatever they were planning to do with those access to get further to the system, hindi na nila nagawa.
Alright, Asec, since the hacks last October, meron bang ginawa yung mga ahensya na naabisuhan ninyo? Were they able to reinforce or strengthen their IT or their cybersecurities, their firewalls? Did they take any of your recommendations and act on it right away? We of course know today that Congress is planning to already beef up by consulting third-party IT experts. So baka ngayon pa lang sila. What about the other agencies?
Well, we're at least naman to say that since that tax, they already communicated with the DICT. We conducted several multi-level DAPT testing. And we recommended several steps that they should take. And most of them, if not all, have taken the advice of DICT. They strengthened their cybersecurity capabilities. They upskilled the personnel that are taking care of their systems. So, maganda naman yung response ng mga ahensya nito.
Well, I guess I'm more concerned about accountability, right? So what happens, taking into the lower house attack in this October last year, for example. At that time, we spoke to you guys as well, and you said there are strong indications that it was a local hacker. It could be a group, could be a single person, but local hacker. So what happens then after that? Let's say you've done the investigation, were we able to catch these hackers? Were we able to penalize them, put them in jail? What happened?
So, Ma'am Regina, let's define each other's purposes of accountability. Let's define each other's role. DICT's role is to investigate what happened, point out who our suspected threat actors are, then pass them on to law enforcement for case reporting. Then afterwards, the law enforcers now pass it on to the prosecution side of it for proper prosecution and then the filing of cases. And then thereafter, if the prosecution is successful, we would see convictions for these actions that we have taken.
Right, but as far as you're concerned, were you able to turn over the perpetrators to law enforcement?
We were able to turn over our investigation and our suspected individuals. Now it's the time of law enforcement further beef up and build up the case.
So you gave names to the PNP?
We gave the suspected names to both the DOJ and the PNP.
Okay, and at this point, we don't know what happened to them after. The PNP hasn't updated you.
Well, it's not their duty to update us, but we do have some case briefings. They're still building up the case against these individuals so that they can guarantee conviction.
Okay, I just want to clarify because we haven't heard anything since we reported in that story, and I was just a bit worried that it's going to keep happening, right?
How long till we find out the case resolution? And kasi nanggaling ako sa PNP Cybercrime Division at medyo nagrereklamo sa akin yung mga tao doon. Now we have some problems with legislation when it comes to parang kumbaga yung Data Privacy Act natin limits the power of the PNP to access for example data, identity data when it comes to tracking down itong mga IP addresses, yung numbers. Meron ba tayong hinaharap na mga balakid dito in terms of the legal process involved?
Yes, ma'am. I agree with the PNP that there are several laws in place that prevent us from really going after these threat actors. One that they mentioned is the Data Privacy Act that limits our capabilities to really have a free hand in going after them by getting into their private data to ascertain their identities. Second ho siguro is kulang na kulang ho yung batas natin siguro when it comes to penalizing these particular acts. We have to rely on the provisions of our revised penal code still, the cybercrime law. So there are desirable changes sana na we would like to be put in place so we can we have to realize now, because one thing that the pandemic showed us is everything now is based on the internet. So even crimes are being perpetrated using the internet.
Well, you do have a hearing being called for by House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Perhaps, is this perhaps something that you would bring up in that hearing? And what can we expect? Have they already told you what to prepare for that?
Yes, ma'am. If given the chance, we would voice out our concerns and our wish list with regards to not only the prosecution side of it, the legislation that should be passed in order to properly prosecute these individuals, but also, more importantly, legislation that would allow us to get more people into government, to help government procure and hire more competent, more skilled individuals. Again, I point out to the fact that the government cannot compete with the salary disparity when it comes to the private companies, especially those based abroad. So, sana ho ma-bring up yan and we would voice out sana yung mga pwede kong magawa natin para paigtingin pa ho yung cybersecurity posture natin, as well as laws that can be passed on to make these people accountable.
All right, maraming salamat. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. The DICT Assistant Secretary Aboy Paraiso.
Up next, former Chief Justice Hilario Davides says amending the Constitution is tantamount to orchestrating a dance to hell. Find out what he means by that when the big story returns. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. The Senate continued to tackle charter change in a subcommittee hearing today, this time with legal experts and authors of the 1987 Constitution themselves. Now, today's meeting was focused on the resolution of both houses number 6, which seeks to amend economic restrictions in public services, education, and advertising. But as expected, the framers of the Constitution defended the 1987 Charter, going as far as to call the current push for Cha-Cha a dance to hell.
Let's find out what they mean by that dance to hell remark. We have News 5 Senate correspondent Man Los Baños to give us the details. Go ahead, Man.
Yes, Shawn, constitutional framers believe in general that there is no compelling reason to amend the 1987 Constitution. Former Chief Justice Hilario Davide for one pointed out that the problem is not with the 1987 Constitution, but rather on how it is being implemented. Davide warned against opening the doors further to foreign ownership, especially in education.
Amendments to or revision of the Constitution at this time would be a lethal experiment, a fatal leap, a plunge to death, a leap to hell. It will be a cha-cha dance to the grave or to hell. It will be a cruel punishment for a God-loving, patriotic, and nationalistic people.
For his part, former Justice Adolfo Azcuna is open to easing economic policies but not through amending the Constitution.
It should be in an ordinary legislation. I'm for restriction, but it should be flexible. It should be in legislative form, not in a very hard to change constitutional provision.
Legal experts also agree in the matter of voting to amend the charter. They said it is best if the Senate and the lower house vote separately in a constituent assembly. Shawn, for now, the Senate said it will work on the rules for CONAS once discussions finish at the subcommittee level. However, we still clearly have a long way to go, and even Senate President Mig Zubiri acknowledges that, saying he foresees a problem if the House sticks to its guns and adds even more political amendments. Zubiri said if the two chambers refuse to agree, then nothing will be passed. Shawn?
All right, thanks so much for that, man. Los Baños.
Now, back to the lower house. Security has been tightened after some lawmakers received bomb threats. Heightened police presence was observed since Friday at the Batasang Pamansa. There were police mobiles around the compound and K9 units sniffing vehicles entering the area. House Secretary General Regina Velasco says they don't know the motive behind these threats.
I cannot reveal the names of those who have received threats. Basta sinasabi lang na baka bombahin tong House of Representatives, mga ganun. But as I've said, we take all these threats seriously. So, kaya we have taken special precaution ngayon.
Thankfully, Sec Gen Velasco also said that there were no specific threats directed at House Speaker Martin Romualdez.
Pero hindi naman ito yung first time na nagkaroon ng banta yung mga lawmakers natin sa House of Representatives. Kasi noong 2007, si Representative Wahab Akbar, yun yung isa sa mga reasons kung bakit namatay siya because of a car bomb.
A motorcycle bomb.
Motorcycle. Dumaan yata, tapos sumabog.
No, dati kasi they allowed the motorcycles to park kasi malaki yung ano dun di ba? Malaki
right in
yung
front,
sidewalk.
the frontage.
Around it. So parang I think nung palabas siya, sumabog yung motorcycle. And unfortunately, he died. So that was a congressman from Pasig.
Pero ngayon bawal na.
Kaya pinagbawal na
Doon
nila.
pumasok yung mga motorcycles and delivery riders.
Kahit daw
in the
Grab
compound.
food, bawal pumasok. Sa loob ng premises. And nakaseparate na rin yung parking lot ng mga employees na nakamotor doon sa mga employees na nakakotse to ensure that does not happen
But
again.
it's also good that Sec Gen Velasco was saying that they take every threat seriously, right?
Poor Sec Gen Velasco, he must be really, really busy.
He must be really stressed right now.
All right, and moving on to this other saga that the whole nation has been watching. President Bongbong Marcos has once again urged Filipinos to unite in the face of the ongoing political strife. In his latest vlog, Marcos Jr. stressed that the success of his Bagong Pilipinas campaign hinges not only on the efforts of the government but also on the unity of the people. The president likewise downplayed claims that the campaign merely seeks to cover up his administration's shortcomings. Over the previous weeks, tensions rose between Marcos and his predecessor, former President Rodrigo Duterte, in what political analysts call as the crumbling of the Uniteam alliance. But President Marcos insists that the alliance remains intact.
Sa isang bagong Pilipinas, walang puwang ang mga paninira at paghahatakang pababa. Unahin natin ang ating bayan. Magbago na tayo dahil walang bagong Pilipinas kung walang bagong Pilipinas.
The president, however, did not respond to Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte calling on him to resign. Instead, Senator Amy Marcos spoke up once again. Let's get more details on that from Brian Basa. Brian, go ahead.
Gretchen, in Senator Amy Marcos's words, parang may gustong mag-away kami. That's what she said about her ongoing tension with Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte. Mayor Baste had earlier criticized what Senator Amy told the media, claiming that he apologized to the senator after calling for the resignation of President Bongbong Marcos during a leadership forum in Davao City on January 28th. Mayor Baste says in a Facebook post, he feels like the senator is just using him for media drama. Mayor Baste admits he did apologize, but out of pity for her and not because of what he said about the president. The Davao City Mayor adds Senator Amy should stop the deception. He mentions they let it slide before, but the noise continues until now. Senator Amy says that she already talked to Mayor Baste, but no elaboration on whether she misunderstood anything. Senator Amy insists in the current chaos, it's very easy to misinterpret stories. She thinks someone might want to stir conflict between them. No name dropping from the senator either, adding she won't divulge more details for now. Back to you.
Thanks for that inside information, Brian Basa. Ito nakita ko sa ex ni Defense Editor Manny Mogato. Ang sabi niya, wala silang tiwala kay Senator Amy Marcos, yung kampo ng mga Duterte, at parang tingin nga nila medyo baka Trojan horse. Because nga naman, blood,
baka double agent.
Sa iba, blood runs thicker than water, di ba? So, yun yung mga haka-haka.
I don't know. I feel like everyone has so much distrust of everyone in this whole. That's how it got to be this messy.
That's what they always say, diba? Trust no one.
But also, Senator
I trust
Amy,
you guys.
diba, was said
sure?
to be responsible for the UNITEAM and syempre yung pagkalibing nung daddy nila, si Ferdinand Marcos Sr. was granted by President Duterte.
Okay, ang mga natin, susunod na kabanata, ukol dyan. Pero break muna tayo right after that. Former cabinet officials of President Duterte have come out to oppose his call for a separate Mindanao Republic. We'll be speaking to former IBP President Attorney Domingo Cayosa about the legalities of this when the big story returns. Keep it here.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here in One News. Former cabinet members of ex-President Rodrigo Duterte are now opposing his call for secession, or the complete separation of Mindanao from the rest of the Philippines. Among them is National Security Advisor Secretary Eduardo Año, who also served as DILG Secretary under Duterte. In a statement, Año emphasized that the strength of the country lies in its unity, and any attempt to sow division must be rejected by all sectors unequivocally. He also said that any suggestion of secession not only runs counter to the Constitution, but also threatens to undo the hard-won gains of peace and development, particularly in Mindanao. Año stated that the comprehensive peace process, which has brought an end to decades of armed conflict in Mindanao, must be vigorously safeguarded and built upon.
For Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr., Presidential Advisor on Peace, Process, Reconciliation, and Unity, a secession will only result in chaos and hinder progress if the nation is divided. Galvez also urged the public to reject any form of destabilization, especially those advocating for Mindanao separation from the Philippines. DILG Secretary Benhur Abalos likewise said that secession is not the answer to Mindanao's concerns. He added that it would destroy the territorial integrity of the Philippines and disrupt decades of painstaking effort to build a stronger union among peoples and ethnicities.
The Justice Department also vehemently opposed secession, saying it is contrary to the principles of the country's democratic society, as stated in Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution. Defense Secretary gov't, on the other hand, said that the mandate of the Department of National Defense is to secure the sovereignty of the state and the integrity of the national territory as enshrined in the Constitution, emphasizing that they will strictly enforce this mandate, whether externally or internally. The PNP also stood firm, saying that any move to separate any part of the country from the Philippines has no place within its ranks. According to PNP Chief Benjamin Acorda Jr., such actions will not bring any good to the nation and may potentially lead to chaos. For now, though, the PNP is not seeing any trouble, noting that there are no significant large groups supporting this proposal.
There are any efforts of any secession, parang hindi maganda, and it will only entail magulo na to a magnitude na siguro baka di natin kayanin. Pag gagawin yun, magkakagulo talaga. But as of now, there is no cause for alarm that the PNP is 100% na ayaw na at isa ang tututo what is embodied in the Constitution as defined na territory natin. We will keep that.
Right, despite that assurance from the PNP, it might as well help us all to understand better the legalities of this alleged push for Mindanao secession. Joining us for that discussion tonight, live via Zoom, is former President of the IBP, the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, Attorney Domingo Cayosa. Attorney, good evening. Thank you for joining us again tonight.
Good evening, Gretchen, Shawn, and Regina, at magandang gabi sa iyong mga viewers.
Okay, so legal ba ito, no? Itong call for secession, attorney, and are there any specific legal principles enshrined in the 1987 Constitution making secession illegal?
Well, if you look at the Constitution, the focus there really is the territorial integrity of our country. And so any attempt to dismember the Republic or our territory will be met with resolute opposition from every government official. Secondly, the way they are proposing it, yung pirma daw or going to the United Nations, are processes that will not be availing for them. Hindi yan pwede dyan sa pirma because amendments to the Constitution can only be done through pirma if they are minor amendments. Secession of Mindanao or dismembering the Republic would be a major amendment of our Constitution, which would require either a Constituent Assembly or a Constitutional Convention. Moreover, I don't think they will get far with that effort because I cannot imagine the Filipino nation or voters supporting any secessionist movement. Going to the United Nations will not also be availing because it is settled in international law that secession is a domestic issue and the international bodies like the United Nations will not meddle in that. They can only perhaps look at self-determination but not secession. So in either case, any of the approaches they are saying would be doomed to fail. Also, politically, even the leaders of Mindanao and even those groups that used to be advocating for secession are not supporting the call of the former president. So I think it will be a legal, political, or practical impossibility.
How do you define sedition in this case? Because the NSA Secretary Eduardo Años said that any attempt to secede will be met by government with resolute force. He did not name the former president though, pero with the statements of the former president, do you think he was being seditious? Ang legal definition ng sedition ay dapat public and tumultuous in nature. So what is your sense with that?
Well, they made it clear, both the president and Congressman Alvarez, who he claims would be spearheading the effort, made it clear that it will be peaceful, it will not be sedition, it will not be insurrection or rebellion. So we trust that it will be that, no? But as we said, wala ring papupuntahan yan. But of course, we appreciate, and it is rightly so, for government officials to say that any attempt that would amount to a crime, sedition, rebellion, insurrection are crimes, should be met with resolute force and determination.
So only when there's violence will it be called sedition and discussions are permitted, am I correct?
Yes, only when there is violence, it is tumultuous, in disregard of the laws of this country. I think it's part of the democratic process and the part of the freedom of expression of these people who are advocating for secession. Misplaced though it may be, it's still their constitutional right to express their sentiments and their views.
So at which point, attorney, na pwede silang kasuhan bilang seditious, rebellious, etc. Does it have to exit the realm of discussion and enter the realm of action first? And do these actions have to be proven in the court? Paano po yun?
No, discussions, walang problema yan. Even actions, as long as they are not illegal. For example, this attempt or this plan to get signatures in an attempt to demonstrate their resoluteness, getting signatures is not a crime. No, it's nothing illegal. But as we already discussed, that will be unavailing, diba? So it cannot also be that in the guise of law and order, you suppress the basic constitutional right of anyone.
Attorney, does the Constitution lay out any consequences for anyone who calls for secession or separation, not just of Mindanao, but of any part of the country?
Well, of course, yes. He will be met with resistance and opposition from any government official because everybody, all government officials and government, and even us Filipinos, take an oath to defend our Constitution. And our Constitution, in many parts of the Constitution, it reiterates the primordial interest of this country to maintain our territorial integrity. So tama lang na lahat ng mga government officials and and even politicians stand against this idea of secession.
Okay, attorney, of course, a lot of the departments, specifically the Justice Department, has spoken and the Interior Department about this. What's your thoughts on yung gamit nilang constitutional basis for opposing secession? Just your opinion.
Yes, it is their duty as government officials to maintain the territorial integrity of our country. So unless the Constitution is changed, unless our territory is changed in constitutional ways, then it is the duty of every government official and employee, and even us ordinary Filipinos, to oppose and stop any secessionist bid.
And then lastly, just very quickly, Attorney, you said that it's not illegal to be gathering signatures, but I was wondering what your thoughts were on the ongoing People's Initiative.
Well,
or rather,
that's another matter.
Attempt at People's Initiative.
Yeah, People's Initiative started by this Pirma group and alleged to be supported by the congressman. Well, I think our Constitution provides for that. People's Initiative is a way by which our Constitution may be amended. So to my mind, it is not also fair that they be stopped. Of course, we can criticize and expose if there are underhanded or illegal means by which they get the signatures. But people's initiative and getting signatures for that purpose is not per se illegal or bad for this country.
Okay, going along with this example, no, that Reg's question, Attorney Cayosa, since let's say ma-prove na gumagamit nga ng subsidies, so yung mga ayuda to get
Mga
a signature.
pa-Jollibee. Legal
Mga
ba yun?
pa-Jollibee, ganon. Could that be...
And wouldn't that be hard to prove, though?
Yeah. But let's just say, let's just say they're able to prove it.
Okay.
Let's say they're able to prove it. Would that invalidate the entire signature campaign already, just like that?
No, what can be invalidated would be those signatures that were procured through that means, no? Illegally, or the use of public funds. But the other signatures that may have been given freely and knowingly cannot be invalidated.
So kung wari ako po ay nag-donate, no, to this cause as a private individual, is that legal?
Yes, of course, because you have to understand that people's initiative should be coming from the private sector,
Okay.
not from government.
What if I am a public official, but I say that I am donating to this cause as a private individual?
Using
you
your
have all the
private
right
money.
to-
Using my
Yeah.
private
Yes.
money.
You have all the right to do that. Even if you are a public official, still you are not deprived of your right to freely express yourself and support causes that are not illegal. So you can use your private money to support these causes. What is prohibited is the use of government funds, public funds for this PIRMA initiative.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for playing along with our examples and, of course, clarifying for us these issues plaguing us in this day and age. Thank you so much for your time, former IBP President, Attorney Domingo Cayosa. Another quick break for now. Right after that, the 66th Grammy Awards was held earlier today in Los Angeles. We'll talk about some of the winners and, yes, Taylor Swift's historic win. When the big story returns, stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Well, it was a bejeweled night for pop sensation Taylor Swift as she bagged her 4th Album of the Year award, the most for any artist in Grammy history. Taylor's chart-topping 10th studio album Midnights won the top Grammy prize, besting nominees like SOS by SZA and Guts by Olivia Rodrigo. This is Taylor's 4th Album of the Year award after Fearless, 1989, and Folklore. Pero hindi pa tayo natatapos dyan dahil mukhang hard worker of the year itong si Taylor. She also announced her 11th studio album called The Tortured Poets Department, which will be out on April 19th. That's my birthday.
Maybe she has scheduled it for you.
Other top winners include Billie Eilish for her Barbie soundtrack hit What Was I Made For, which won Song of the Year. Miley Cyrus also performed everyone's post-breakup anthem Flowers, which won Record of the Year. Best New Artist went to Victoria Monet, who also won Best R&B Album for Jaguar 2.
Oh, I like it. Puro girls yung mga nanalo.
Yeah, and this is also Taylor's 13th Grammy. So she set a new record. So she was tied for 3 album Grammys with who was she tied with? I can't remember. But so she was tied with 3. No, is it Stevie Wonder? I can't remember.
Oh, okay. Older than that.
Yeah. In history ito.
Yeah.
So now she has the most album Grammys
Ever.
of any artist in history. So, yeah.
Well, Gretchen was just asking me during the break kung Swiftie daw ba ako, and I said, you know what? Di ko rin ma-prevent yung sarili ko na madala nung tsunami that is Taylor Swift because she's everywhere. And then after a while, I think what makes her really popular is napaka-simple nung songs niya, and they tell a story. Hindi siya masyadong sakto lang yung blind items niya in her songs. It keeps people guessing.
Kumbaga relevant.
She loves the Easter eggs.
Relate well to her songs.
It's so relatable. The melodies are easy. But here we go. We have our big picture pa for tonight, which shows, unlike Taylor Swift, the unpredictability of Mother Nature. This is a photo of Mayon volcano taken yesterday afternoon as it spewed ash some 1,200 meters high. Yes, 1,200 meters. This phreatic or steam-driven eruption happens when hot volcanic material comes into contact with water beneath the ground. Mount Mayon is still under alert level 2, which means that the volcano is in a moderate level of unrest. The public is being reminded yet again not to enter the 6-kilometer permanent danger zone surrounding Mount Mayon.
Beauty of nature in that photo. Still, we could celebrate that because it is not yet, hopefully it does not go to the danger level. But yun nga, sabi ko, happy to be back. Pagbalik ko dito, kasi winter ako galing ako sa Switzerland.
Pinawisan ka ba agad?
Tsaka sa Paris. Oh, ang init. Sabi ko,
it's not even that hot.
I left the Philippines.
Weather.
I left the Philippines. It was still cold.
Yeah.
And I was gone for 2 weeks. Pagbalik ko dito, ang
it's
init
summer
na.
na talaga.
Oo. Pero ito nga, kasi Chinese New Year na this coming weekend.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And
we have to remember that.
I always get reminded na pagpalo ng Chinese New Year, yun na, start na uminit.
I thought it was March, supposedly.
Yeah, but the moons,
season.
the moons turning, the tides, etc., etc. It's very scientific, but
wait, before you start waxing poetic, eto na, I need to correct myself baka the Swifties might kill me.
Okay.
She was tied with Frank Sinatra, Stevie Wonder, and Paul Simon.
Oh,
for a number of album Grammys in
so
history.
now she's
ahead. She's above them. These gentlemen.
Frank Sinatra, Paul Simon,
Stevie
and
Wonder.
Stevie
That's
Wonder.
right. Look at these are like legends, right? So now Taylor Swift is standing head and shoulders above them with 4 Grammy albums and
Good
13
news to start
Grammys.
off the Chinese New Year.
And all the more now, I feel so lucky I got tickets to the
diba? Saka magka-kompleto na tayo ngayon, finally. Right?
After.
Because sabi ko nga, itong January parang medyo leftovers pa ng 2023 nangyari. 2023.
So you want to refresh or restart?
Let's restart the year this coming
February.
Friday, Saturday.
January felt so long for a lot of people, right?
It's true. Why are there 51 days in January? All right, before we get somewhere we don't want to go, that's it for the big story on this Monday night.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in. Have a good night.